We are live. Blast off. Today, we're going to be talking about weight loss being bad for you and weight loss being like not the healthiest thing, especially with the way that we lose weight in modern times. We're also going to look into some of the things I've said in the past of some things about war on carbs, some things I had in my Jacked and Tan book. And I just want to illustrate and show you guys that I've been aware of a lot of things for many, many years. And cooking in the background the whole time has been some rice and some carbohydrates and some sugars. Cooking in the background the entire time has been basically the utilization of carbohydrates to increase your performance. And I've talked about it many times, and I'll show you some of the quotes and stuff that I had in some of my books, just so you guys understand that I did have an understanding of this, and that my switch recently is not necessarily just a 180. It's just an evolution of changing and switching diets and changing from one thing to another. And I like changing my mind sometimes. And also, I have to admit, there's things that I was wrong about. There's things that I said that was wrong. I still do believe in protein leveraging. I still do believe in high amounts of protein. I still believe in, for most people in America, for them to make small changes. A good small change they can make is to increase protein. Another good small change they can make is to decrease fats, especially when it comes from processed foods. And obviously, the most important thing for people to do is just to cut out junk, cut out fast food, I hate cutting things out of people's lives and cutting things out of people's diet, but that's important. And those are still important. And the way for people to lose weight isn't just always the sugar diet. There's a lot of different ways for people to figure these things out. But something else I was wrong about was the Liver King. And it wasn't so much I was wrong about him. It's not like I was promoting that I thought he was natural. I never did think that, and I never did comment on that. I did specifically say, though, when I came back from Liver King Ranch with my brother, where the Liver King lied to both of us about whether he uses them or not, which is fine, because that's what people do. People in this industry, some of them tend to lie, and you guys are well aware of that. But you can see the difference, in the way the Liver King looked back then when we went to film him. Obviously, he looks big and jacked. Looks like he's roided up, but he doesn't look the way he looks now, where maybe he's going through some other things mentally, emotionally, and maybe he's abusing some other types of drugs. Some people are saying meth. They think meth is at play here. And I don't want to speculate on something I don't know anything about, but he clearly looks a lot different. And most recently, he's been talking about attacking Joe Rogan, which I just thought was like absolutely crazy. He's talking about like fighting Joe Rogan. And it's like, I can understand maybe Joe Rogan's not everyone's cup of tea. But I don't recall Joe Rogan, ever, it's just pure bullshit. Like I don't recall Joe Rogan ever saying anything about Liver King that would warrant like him, trying to fight or do whatever he was trying to do to Joe Rogan. I do know that Joe Rogan did say, hey, I think this guy's full of shit. Hey, I think this guy's lying to you. I think that this guy is not truthful. I think he's a charlatan, and all those things ended up becoming, you can judge it for yourself. I'll just leave it in your own hands to figure out whether you think it's a charlatan or not. That way I ain't got to say it, but you can judge it for yourself on your thoughts there. And, Joe Rogan, everybody knows Joe Rogan's prolific fighter, knows how to take care of himself 100%. And so the Liver King doesn't even pose he doesn't pose a threat. However, when you're making threats and kind of rambling on and speaking in code and talking some nonsense that the Liver King was talking, it was just pure bullshit. It's just, there's no other way to look at it. And what I was wrong about with the Liver King is thinking that he is somebody that we can even watch for entertainment. And I think we need to be careful with the way that we consume our entertainment and who it's from. And I think this guy has like he's got some very dangerous tendencies, I believe, from after, seeing some of the things we've seen in the last couple of days. Johnny Bravo put out a video. He's going to put out a video explaining more information. He's told me some stuff in confidence, but I'll let him drop the video and you guys can watch. But he put out a short video. It's about 5 minutes long, and he'll put out a longer one that tells you more about, kind of what's all going on with the Liver King. So, there are times where I talk a lot, right? And I do a lot of videos, and I communicate a lot about people that I put forward that I think are worth a shit. And I think maybe I apologize. I guess I'll just say that flat out. I apologize because regardless of I don't care much about steroids. You guys know my stance on it. I'm not natural. And I started taking performance-enhancing drugs when I was 25. And I know a lot of people that lie about it. So to me, when someone lies about steroids, it's never been that big a deal to me. But lying is lying, right? And I understand why other people get upset and offended by it. But I could separate that stuff out. I could separate somebody lying to the public when they're making a video for Instagram about what they're taking and what they utilize versus the person that I hang out with for the time, and the Liver King was a fun person to hang out with. He's got a lot of cool toys. I went to his ranch. We cruised around on his four-wheelers and shit like that, and we had a good time. Got to shoot some guns and shoot some shit that I've never shot before in my life. And we just had a great time. We broke some bread with him. My brother and I had opportunity to eat with him and his family, his wife, his kids. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a good hang. We got to hang out, and it was just great that we had, a lot of cool shit to do, I guess you'd say. But as you guys know, like, his character is just doesn't seem great. And I, at the time, was just more enjoying his like WWE-esque information about his ancestral tenets, which I still think are great. I still think that, eating the foods that he talked about, the proteins and the fats and stuff like that, I still think are very valuable. And I think consuming organs are valuable. That's why before I ever met the Liver King or knew anything about him, I made the first ever protein supplement that also was infused with liver, kidney, heart, spleen, pancreas. These are all things I believed in and known about for a really long time. So if I was wrong about the Liver King, in my, I guess I was communicating to you guys that, like, hey, this is someone I sort of sign off on in terms of his entertainment value, and with some of the things he's saying, again, in 100% reference to his ancestral tenets. And just because I, went down and saw the guy down in Houston does not mean I know him. Don't know him very well. I've gotten to know him better, but I've met him one time in person. So that's that. And we're just going to kind of move on to the next. I guess I'll just mention this at the end here, just saying, like, yeah, he was threatening Joe Rogan. I thought it was like gross. I thought it was over the top. I don't know why. There was no root cause of it. There was no, like, he kept saying he's fighting for his family, but I don't remember Rogan saying anything about his family. I don't think Joe Rogan's that kind of person. I don't think he does that kind of shit. And I just don't think Joe Rogan gives a fuck in general, because his motor is flying high and he's doing great. And like, why would he worry about, somebody saying a bunch of stupid stuff? However, when they say things that are threatening and there's like weapons in the background and so forth, then I know for myself personally, if someone was doing that to me, I would say, hey, like, I don't have a security team, but I would get one. And I would communicate to them, or I would call the police and say, hey, I don't know what the law is around here, but like, this guy's saying a bunch of crazy shit about me and he wants to like kick my ass, and I don't understand what it's about. But before anything happens, maybe go check this out. And I think somebody was alerted, by authorities. I don't think it was, I highly doubt it would be Joe Rogan himself that would do that. Probably someone on his team, and or just somebody in the state of Texas who was like, what's this guy talking about? He's going to try to kill this like celebrity, or going to try to fight this celebrity, is what he kept saying. But Who the hell knows? Anyway, I think the Liver King story ends more. I think it ends worse than what we've already seen so far, and I hope that it doesn't, and I hope he's able to get whatever help, or I hope he's able to get whatever it is that he needs in the next couple weeks, months, and year, so that he can go on to live an extraordinary life with him and his family. So moving on and moving to the subject of losing weight, being unhealthy, you might be like, wait a second. I thought that you said this. I thought that you said that. And there's a lot of confusion over things that I say. And, on my Instagram, people are pretty brutal, and they'll lump me in with the Liver King. They'll call me a charlatan, or they'll say, I'm a dirtbag, that I just, hustle all these products, and how much I've changed over the years. So let's just back everything up and everybody just calm the fuck down for a second. I have been hustling products from the very beginning. From the very beginning, my start in this industry was with Dave Tate of EliteFTS.com. Go to that website and check it out. And check out how many motherfucking SKUs of stuff they have for sale. I've been talking about bands. I've been talking about chains. I've been talking about all these different things you can utilize when you're training. Bench pressing off of boards. And people used to say, why are you trying to sell us on a bunch of boards that we can get a hammer and nail and do it ourselves? Or why are you trying to sell us on a box that we sit on? Why has it got to be $140? Because it makes things easier just to have it shipped to your house. And for those of you that maybe don't have the finances for it, use a chair or squat onto a bench, or, insert whatever, or don't buy the bands or chains because you don't necessarily need them. They can help, and they could be more effective. They can assist you, right? But this whole time I've been talking about products forever, whether it's a weighted vest or a medicine ball or a dumbbell or a kettlebell. It's very rarely what I've been promoting, like, not a product at all. And think about your favorite influencer, and when do they ever just sell you on nothing? They're not really, right? I mean, am I missing something? Like, is someone sharing? Okay, there's some people that are probably sharing calisthenics with you, right? Okay, but think of your favorite calisthenics person. Now, what are they selling you? Coaching. They're selling you a program. I haven't tried to sell you guys on any of that stuff. I've never went that route. I have my own reasons for it, but I never went that route. But I have been talking about products forever. Even when I was powerlifting, I was talking about bench shirts and wrist wraps and knee wraps, and they weren't my products. It just so happened years later, as I had an invention. The invention is called the Slingshot. It's a supportive upper body device for bench press, push-ups, and dips. And yes, it helped me a ton with monetary gain, helped me reach financial freedom. And now it gives me this, provides me this beautiful life where I get to sit back and I get to examine all the cool things that are going on in the fitness industry. And I get to decide which things that I think I'm going to try. And then I try these things and I communicate out to you guys what I think is effective. And over the years, I've communicated about keto. I still think keto rocks. I still think it's amazing. I communicated about carnivore. I still think carnivore has a great place for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be able to lose a lot of weight. A lot of people already have lost a lot of weight when utilizing the carnivore diet, and people have had better health outcomes in utilizing the carnivore diet. I think it's been a great intervention into fitness, period, for people just to try something different and to try an elimination diet. I've talked to you many times about the vertical diet. How often do I promote the vertical diet when somebody just wants weight gain, or when somebody just wants to be healthier? That's my go-to. I talk about that all the time. I'm always selling something. So this idea that I changed is actually not correct. And I guess, like, it's rare for me to be frustrated with much of anything, but where I can get frustrated at times is when people misinterpret what I'm saying or what I'm doing. The Slingshot has been a product that I've had since 2010. So wake the fuck up. I've been selling shit for over 15 years, and I've been selling shit for probably more like 20 years, because before the Slingshot, there was other stuff that I was selling. So that's not new. Me selling stuff to people is not new. I'm always selling you on something, and I'm authentic about it. I talk about it all the time. And you know that there is a price tag to some of the things that I sell because that's the way that it works. That's the way e-commerce works. That's the way it goes. But when it comes to the sugar diet, or it comes to the hours and hours and all the time spent and money spent on filming for carnivore, keto, and now sugar diet, sugar fasting, I've spent a lot of time and money on that. And yes, I'm getting stuff back for it. Yes, my YouTube channel does well. Yes, it makes some money and so forth. And like, I'm getting like attention and like whatever else, whatever. But like, who's doing something for nothing? And the answer is no one. So anyway, probably didn't need to defend myself, but I feel the need sometimes to explain myself because maybe some people are new and maybe like, just last year, this guy was talking about this and now he's doing that. That's true because I'm evolving. So I do go from one thing to another. Hey, I thought why are you going from one thing to another? Are you jumping from one thing to another? Yes. It's called a lily pad, motherfucker. You ever seen a frog jump across a pond? The only way for him to get to the other side is to utilize all the lily pads. You got to go from one to the other. And when he jumps off one and he lands on the other one, he doesn't talk shit about how the other one was bad. The lily pad in the past was bad. He's like, that was a jump off point for me at that time that I needed to get to this one. And then you get to the next one and the next one and so forth. That's the way it works. So I would love for people to try their best to have a little bit more open mind when it comes to some of the things I'm sharing, some of the things I'm saying. And if they challenge you and if they make you mad and you make a rude comment, that's actually great in a lot of ways. Because you need to be challenged, because what you're probably doing for yourself right now probably isn't working. It's probably why you're watching this video right now. So whatever you're currently doing for weight loss sucks, unless you're doing some of the things that we've talked about on this channel before. But you also just might be stalled out for these little tiny reasons that we talk about endlessly on this channel to try to correct people as they go along, because stalls and things like that are going to happen no matter what style of diet that you follow. So weight loss is unhealthy. What do I mean by that? Whether you're sugar fasting or whether you're doing a keto diet or whether you're following a bodybuilding diet, whether you're doing if it fits your macros or any other diet that you can possibly think of, insert Mediterranean or whatever it is, there's a compromise on the body. There's a pull. Okay. What's the definition? How do we talk about, how do we talk about being in a caloric deficit, right? How do we talk? We talk about it through seeing the scale go down. I believe that's the definition of a caloric deficit, is that your body weight is trending downward. That's kind of the only accurate measure that we have at the moment of figuring out whether you're consuming less energy than your metabolic rate, let's just say. That's the only accurate way, is we have a scale. You weigh yourself, and then you see the scale go downward, right? So I want to ask you this question. The amount of time it would take you to lose 60 pounds and to keep those 60 pounds off, what kind of caloric deficit do you need to be in, and for how long? It's probably going to take a while. Like, could someone do it in 3 months? Sure. I'm sure they could. I'm sure people have. Would it be better if it probably took closer to a year? Yes, it'd be a little bit better, because it would probably be more sustainable once you got there. The faster you lose weight, sometimes the faster it rebounds back in the other direction. Weight loss in and of itself can be very healthy. So we can see all these markers of health. We had Stan Efferding come on this channel and talk about, it's on the Mark Smelly Bell channel, saying that when you lose weight, so many of your markers of health improve. Your all-cause mortality improves tremendously just by losing like 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 400 pounds, if you lost 40 pounds, which is a nice amount of weight, but it's not that much for somebody that weighs 400 pounds. Someone that weighs 400 pounds could lose 40 pounds pretty quickly. and some of their markers of health would improve in a very short period of time. If they kept the 40 pounds off or they continued to lose more weight, they would even get quote unquote healthier. However, with anything, as I've been communicating this entire time, eventually your luck will run out. And what I mean by luck, I just mean that this idea that you're going to be in like perpetual weight loss, you're going to be perpetually in a caloric deficit, it's going to wear out its welcome. It's not going to be this crazy healthy endeavor forever. So let's say you're in a caloric deficit for 2 years. Well, what potentially happens to your hormones? What potentially happens to your sex drive? What potentially happens to some of your organs when you have this constant, this pull, this downward pull on the body? There's a price to pay for it. So whether you have to utilize a pharmaceutical intervention like a GLP-1 or any of these other things that help with your hunger, your level of hunger, or whether you're doing it through using sugar fasting or you're doing it through a carnivore diet, no matter which way you're doing it, in order for you to lose weight, and when we see the scale goes down, remember the definition of that is to be in a caloric deficit. When you're doing that perpetually for a long period of time, it's not the safest thing to do. It's not the healthiest thing to do. Just like we know the reverse of it's not the healthiest thing to do. So let's say you played football, you played college football or something. You did something real intense. Well, now it's the end of the football season. You play the last game, and for the next 2 months, you start eating a lot, right? Well, that could be great, and that weight gain could be awesome. 20 pounds of weight gain or 15 pounds of weight gain could be really cool. Again, your luck's going to run out. Like, weight gain isn't always bad, but it's not always good either. So somebody that gains weight from being in a suppressed state, let's say somebody is a triathlete and they're in this like competitive season, their quote unquote season is over, and now they want to enjoy themselves, eat a little bit more. They're kind of on the skinnier side anyway. They do all this stuff. They have all these extra nutrients. And yes, a lot of things are, maybe they're not losing their hair anymore. Maybe their T3 and T4 start to improve. Maybe their growth hormone improves. Maybe their testosterone improves. All these things improve. And then what happens? And then you're fucking fat. And then you're insulin resistant. Like, these are all the things that can happen when you're in a caloric surplus. You can also run into these things by over dieting. You can run into a lot of negative consequences. And I think that whenever we just think about weight loss, we're just thinking of all the positive things that come along with it. And there's a slew of positive things, and there's a reason why we want to aim for it. But what I'm here to talk about, and what I've been talking about from the beginning, is being jacked and tan. I'm talking about being shredded. I'm talking about being in shape. I'm talking about being lean as fuck. That's the kind of shit that I'm talking about. That's the kind of stuff that I'm mesmerized by. I realize that that's not the most important thing for our health. I also would say that if somebody sort of naturally falls into 7-8% body fat, and that's just kind of who they are, and they're not forcing it, then I would say that that's probably somewhat healthy for them, or fairly healthy for them. But in most cases, when you're trying to be really lean and you're not meant to be really lean, I would say that, yeah, like, you're pushing the envelope, just like I was pushing the envelope when I was 330. So I think Dr. Baker made a video about this recently, talking about being very lean, talking about being in really good shape and how maybe that's not the healthiest thing. Well, if somebody gets to 7% body fat, and if they stay there, like a Marcus Philly or something like that, who I think was down to 5%. And I think Marcus, he realized hey, I should actually increase my body fat, because this isn't healthy for me. And I think he's had eating disorders and stuff. And he's somebody that's been on Mark Bell's Power Project before. Great guy, really great information. But yeah, he's as lean as could be. I mean, the guy's got striations in his forearms. You're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, they're just there. So a guy like that, brings his calories back up, or maintains a body weight and a leanness for a long time. And then you're probably on your way to being a little bit healthier. But it's important for people to know, with testosterone or without TRT, if someone's on TRT or someone's on hormone replacement therapy of some type, yes, it can assist with fighting or combating some of these negative side effects that might happen from being on a perpetual diet, but it won't circumvent all of it. You still might have problems with your dick. You still might have issues with your libido. You might run into all kinds of stuff, including energy. So we talk about sugar fasting and sugar diet being amazing for energy. Yes, it can be. But if we are utilizing the sugar diet and we're getting in really good shape, but we want to get in better and better shape, and we want to continue to lose more body fat, and we want to continue to see that scale trending downward, well, if the scale goes down 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, so on, 30, 40, 50, 60, right? It starts to go down, down, down. Well, there is most likely, and not always, going to be some consequences of that. That's just the way that this game is. That's the way it's fucking set up. So what do you do? You know, now you're scratching your head like, wait, shit, even weight loss isn't healthy. I'm not saying in general that weight loss isn't healthy. Hopefully you're understanding what I'm saying. Perpetual weight loss for long periods of time, it's still worth it to lose the weight, but there are some negative side effects that can happen to it. And I actually think that a lot of my weight loss, once it started, I think it really, weight gain and weight loss, I think both fucked my sleep over. I wake up every 90 minutes and I have for, I don't even know how long. It's just been that way. Zero solutions, by the way, the magnesium and so forth, and like all the different stuff. Now, the other thing is I don't have any symptoms that I can recognize. I don't feel tired. It doesn't show up in my blood work. So I don't know what the hell to tell you about that. It's just something that I'm like, well, I wake up every 90 minutes and I wake up every 90 minutes for pretty much as long as I can remember, but it doesn't seem to have a negative impact on anything. So I'll just continue to examine it and continue to try to figure it out, but never figured it out. With all the experts we've had on the show, I've communicated with everybody, and then no one seems to be able to assist me with it. But also there's the possibility that I don't even need any assistance with it, because maybe it just doesn't matter. Maybe I just always wake up every 90 minutes and maybe that's just the way it is. It's not every single night, but it's it's most nights. And I think that maybe through all that weight gain for that period of time, where I was 330 and, you know, up over 300 for a handful of years, you know, I'm basically 6 or 7 years removed from that time period. So you figured at this point, with this amount of weight loss, that would have resolved itself. But anyway, you know, mouth tape and all these things, they do help. It helps for me to breathe in and out of my nose. I do have way more restful sleep. It's just that every 90 minutes I wake up and I pee. And I've been doing that for a really long time. So it's just, you know, some of these things that we run into, they're not always going to be solvable. But so many things can be solved when we start to lose weight. But I think it's important for everyone to understand that weight loss or your diet strategy, even if your diet strategy is promoting weight loss or it is resulting in weight loss, does not necessarily mean that you're always going to have a healthy outcome. What is even further interesting to me is, well, what if somebody's consuming a lot of saturated fat and protein, they're on like a carnivore diet and they're losing weight? Like, are those people in, because like some of the more recent information that I've been hearing is that if your protein's high and your saturated fat's high, you can potentially cause insulin resistance. Well, would that happen in somebody that's like getting leaner and leaner and the scale's going down? I would say I don't think so. I think most of the things that we see are in the presence of a caloric surplus. And that's something to really keep in mind. And in a moment, for those of you that are watching live, we can take some questions whenever you guys have some. But I also want to just finish some of what I'm saying here, and I would like to show you guys how in The War on Carbs, which was written in 1952 by myself. Now, it was written, I don't know, fucking 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It alludes to some different phases of the diet where you start to eat some carbohydrate. It talks about how there's 3 phases, 3 different phases to the diet. I do talk about the PED diet, which at the time I wrote was the performance enhancing diet. Ryan, maybe you can just read. You don't have to read that whole thing, but maybe just read some of it.
Yeah, it says performance enhancing diet, PED, a typical day. If you're doing the PED diet, it looks just like the War on Carbs, except you'll add carbs before and after your workout. For me, carbs from something like rice or a sweet potato several hours before a training session work great. There's been new research showing that certain carbs, when heated and cooled, become a resistant starch. Resistant starches of sweet potatoes and sushi rice are ideal for low-carb living. Post-workout, I have orange juice or OJ plus Gatorade to help replenish carbohydrates. Having my pre-workout carbohydrates come from food allows me to make an agreement with myself that I'm not going to eat any more food carbs the rest of the day.
Well said. And well written, whoever wrote that. No, that was written in the War on Carbs book a long time ago, talking about these prebiotic fibers that resistant starch. Basically, poof, it's like a magic thing. You cook up a bunch of rice, you let it sit in the fridge overnight, and the carbs are reduced by about 50%, which doesn't make any sense. And further, if you heat it and cool it again, it happens again. Like, it happens like over and over and over again. I don't know a ton about, like, if it happens like from the microwave versus like the stove. I don't know some of those things, but just it's a pretty interesting thing. But back to what was written there, like, that exact protocol that's in there is exactly what I'm going to start to do with some of the sugar fasting. I'm going to do exactly what I wrote there. The orange juice post-workout with Gatorade, like, that's money. I got that one from Stan Efferding. Mixing fructose and whatever the hell's in Gatorade. I forget what the different things in Gatorade. But that's going to be something that my body's going to be able to just suck up after a workout perfectly. And pre-workout, actually the only difference in my pre-workout might be, like, I might have like rice with some sugar on it, or rice with some honey on it, or something like that, because I think mixing the glucose, the starch, the rice, with some fructose might even have even better benefits. By the way, for some people that may be suffering from like hypo or hyperglycemia here and there, you may want to have a starch to kind of slow things down a little bit. And I'm not saying, like, just go stuff yourself with a big old potato or a big old thing of rice, but you might find that to be effective and a really great snack or something like that, where it's not going to jack up your, blood glucose too much, would be something like a rice cake, which I know rice cakes have crazy high glycemic index, but I think glycemic index is bullshit. I always thought it was stupid. But anyway, a rice cake with like some honey on it or something like that could be a really awesome pre-workout to try to gravitate towards. What else are you seeing? Some of the stuff I sent you, Ryan?
Yeah, you have a typical day right here. So if your training session is at 11 a.m., this is what your typical day of eating would be like. It would be 9 a.m., gluten-free oatmeal or cream of rice plus peanut butter and Walden Farms pancake syrup. 11 a.m. would be your workout. 1 p.m. would be post-workout George Lockhart cocktail. That's 8 ounces of OJ with 8 ounces of Gatorade and 40 to 80 milligrams of caffeine. 3 p.m. would be a steak, and 7 p.m. would be an omelet with 3 eggs plus cheddar cheese and bacon.
Boom. That that cocktail and the caffeine is kind of an interesting thing. The caffeine trick was based off of which I wouldn't do now, because, like, I wouldn't want to have caffeine at really any time of the day. I don't really consume it much anymore. Sometimes in smaller amounts, but yeah, there was a study that was done years ago that showed caffeine can kind of help with the uptake of glucose So that's kind of why that was in there post-workout. But yeah, mixing, Gatorade and juice and stuff like that together is going to assist the body to be able to upregulate some of those sugars, some of those carbohydrates, the glucose post-workout. I believe that's where a lot of that stuff came from. It's just, my understanding is it's going to help you to clear your glucose faster. At least from some of the stuff I remember. I could be off on some of that, but I gotta kind of dig up that research again. I know Stan Efferding was touting that some years ago. And then we have another thing here that popped up. This is in Jacked and Tan. If you guys haven't checked these books out, go and check it out at markbellslingshot.com. Jacked and Tan is probably the most comprehensive strength training book basically on powerlifting that you'll ever see. And I do talk a little bit about bodybuilding in there, but keep in mind, I only did one bodybuilding show. So I stayed in my lane. I didn't talk a ton about bodybuilding, but I did mention the impact of a bodybuilding style diet and the impact that it had on me over the years. And I talk a little bit about carb cycling. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind reading a little bit of that.
Yeah, so you have a low carb day, and that's on your non-training days, and then high carb days, which are on your training day. So low carb day looks like, it says carbs. This will vary. For one person, this could mean 50 or fewer grams of carbs. For another person, a low carb day might be 1 gram per pound body weight. In general, for this day, the more carbs you have, the less fat you should have. You'll have to play around to find what works best for you. Whatever amount of carbs you decide upon, you'll want to spread them relatively evenly throughout the day. Protein is 1 gram per pound body weight. Fat is a general range of 0.5 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. Again, the more fat you have, the less carbs you'll have. And then cardio, common strategy for burning more fat is to do some cardio on your low carb days, but this isn't a true requirement. You could do your cardio on low carb days, high carb days, or both kind of days. Or you can be lazy and fat and skip it altogether.
There you go. Yeah, so just some insight. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say, look, man, I've always been right about all these things. I've been 100% right about everything all the time. I just wanted to make you guys aware that I've known a lot of these things, because some people, they'll comment and they'll be like, oh, carbs are good for performance. That's new. And I'm like, look, I've known that for a long time. Again, why did I choose keto? Why did I choose carnivore? I've said this many times before. At those times in my life, it was very hard for me to have what I consider to be carbohydrates in my diet, because I would always end up in a situation where I'd overeat. And I maybe just didn't understand I needed more rules if I was going to eat carbohydrates. Now I have a better understanding, because if you're going to eat carbohydrates, I did write about it in this book, but I still had a hard time with control, and I had a hard time with my cravings, and I didn't understand the things that I understand now. If your potassium is on lockdown, your sodium's on lockdown. Potassium you're going to get from your fruit and fruit juice and so on. Sodium, throw in some salt here and there. When your potassium, sodium, water intake are taken care of, your cravings and stuff like that, they'll still be there, but they'll be less. Now, if you can add a fourth thing in there to keep a lot of cravings away, it would be to add in a starch. And so the starch part of it is where things can get a little trickier, just because, again, it's just easy to overeat on starch. It's easy to start to make your calories go through the roof. But now if we start to look back at some of the things I said in Jacked and Tan and some of the things I said in the War on Carbs, and we put these carbohydrates around our workout, well, shit, man, we get to have a really magical and beautiful kind of system in place to be able to hammer some really good food. Tonight, when I'm done with my workout, I'm going to have some rice and some steak, and I'm super excited for that. And I cooked the rice with some vinegar, with some rice vinegar and some sugar in it. And it just has like this little bit of sweetness to it. It's not crazy sweet, but mixed with the steak, it's going to be completely unbelievable. It's going to be post-workout. So post-workout and or in the morning is going to be the best places to do these things. And obviously, if you work out in the morning, like, that's even more beneficial, because in my opinion, when you get these things done early in the morning, it seems like you're able to burn through them better throughout the rest of the day. That's something that Cole talks about a lot, and that's something I communicated with years ago. in talking with other bodybuilding coaches who said, yeah, front load your day and with working out and carbs. Then as the day goes, you trail off your carbohydrates a little bit until bedtime. Then you can hit yourself with a little bit of carbs before you go to bed to give you something to kind of like calm down, relax, not real crazy abundance of carbohydrates or crazy abundance of straight sugar before bed, but something that's going to just kind of just calm you down a little bit and just give you something sweet to have, because most people want something sweet when they're ending their day. So I wanted to communicate that over to you guys and just show you a little bit of that stuff. I also wanted to say that I mentioned earlier that your luck will eventually run out, and it's important to understand that it's my belief to utilize many strategies from many different diets. Now, you're not going to use many different strategies of many different diets like all at the same time, because then you're going to start to you're going to start to eat like high fat and high carb, and like that's not going to work. However, can we still eat high fat and high carb? Can we figure that out? Sure. Sounds like we could if we cycle our macros, right? Could we just not eat fat for a portion of the day and then have fat, with 2 meals and have a nice amount of fat for the day to where we're not suppressing hormones and stuff? So that's where the creativity comes in. And so many people are hitting me up and they're asking me all these questions about the sugar diet, how to do it. And they'll say, hey, I was thinking about this. And I say, yes, you should do that, because I want you guys, this is a sugar diet experiment. It's an experiment, and you should experiment with it. And how many other people ask you to do that? How many other people give you the permission to do that? I think it's really important that you understand that, and understand, again, which I've said from the beginning in sharing information about sugar fasting. I know that you sometimes see me eating candy. I have some candy right here, but I also have a smoothie. I eat a lot of fruit. I have a lot of fruit juice, and I have a little bit of candy here and there. The candy just kind of can make it fun. I do not even eat candy every day. It's probably like, I don't know, twice a week, maybe. And so people can kind of misinterpret some of the information I'm sharing, but sticking those carbohydrates around your workout is going to help to make everything more effective. And just understand that even with the sugar diet, you're going to have to make some tweaks. The sugar diet that you're doing today might not be the sugar diet you're doing a year from now. For some of you, you need to tighten your shit up. You need to stop thinking that you can just overeat and you can just eat as much fruit and as much fruit juice as you want, and as many smoothies as you want, as much candy as you want. That's not the diet. No, sirree, Bob. That's not the diet. You want to try to follow for a handful of days or 3 days in a row or so of no starch, no protein, and no fat. No starch, no protein, no fat. Don't worry, it'll be balanced out. You're not going to lose muscle. You're not going to lose anything other than some weight on the scale, because we're going to make sure that you start to get some of those nutrients back. So use it, maybe every 2 days or every other day or whatever amount you think is going to work well for you. I've had a lot of people start out by just doing fruit fast by day, meat and starch by night, and they've had great results. Lost 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and so on. They lost it pretty quickly. If you're going to do that, use that sugar fast throughout the day as an actual fast with sugar. So don't go nuts with your calories in terms of your juices and your smoothies and stuff. But, enjoy them and allow them to carry you through to dinner. Okay. And then have your dinner, have your lean meat and your protein and your starch and your vegetables. And then if you still want to end the night with something sweet, make another smoothie or have a sorbet or something like that and end your day that way. If we have some questions, let's let her rip.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Says, I've been doing the sugar fasting for 3 days now, and so far so good, but I'm craving foods now and I cannot see sugar anymore. What can I do to continue so I don't quit? And there's a second part. You said, I was thinking to have a steak and fruits only in 2 days, basically meat, vegetables, fruits, then continue.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, experiment. So it sounds like you already have a little bit of a solution for yourself. So that's great. Let's go back to what I said earlier. Make sure you have enough water in your system. Make sure you're having your salt, and make sure you're getting your potassium. Cravings are just cravings. Like they don't mean that much to us. They are important. Like if you're starting to crave steak, think about how different that is from any other diet you've ever done. What do you crave when you get rid of carbs? You crave, for most people, for almost everybody, they crave pure bullshit. They crave ice cream, pizza, donuts. They crave pure bullshit. On sugar fasting, you're going to end up craving steak and potatoes, chicken and rice. That is a huge blessing. So, having said that, if you're 2 or 3 days into a sugar fast where you've had no starch, no fat, and no protein, and you want to break it, fucking go ahead and break it. Break it. Go for it. Seriously. Just end it. You know, you've been thinking about, you woke up this morning, you're like, man, I'm thinking, man, I'd love to have some steak. I'd love to have some rice. Do it. Like just do it. And there shouldn't be any guilt about it because it's steak and rice and they're healthy. Those are both excellent food choices. Steak, rice, some vegetables. Now, if you really wanted to make it 5 days, then go ahead and make it to 5 days. And then, you know, just don't be a little bitch about the craving. It's temporary. It's temporary. And what you're trying to do, like what most of us are trying to do, you're trying to have like this forever weight loss. You're trying to have like an intervention with yourself where you're proving to yourself that you can make yourself better. But there's this little old piece of you that's hanging out that's like, hey, you know, we should just stay the same. It's going to be better this way. And it's not better that way. It sucks. So make yourself better by doing shit that other people aren't going to do because they're fucking weak. Don't be weak. Be strong. You know, when you're trying to commit to something and do something, do it. But at the same time, if you feel like you really need to break it because you need to break it, then just break it. And there's no reason to be like upset about it. I think that this diet works great if you can do it for anywhere between 1 to about 4 days. I wouldn't say that, like, you know, it doesn't have an impact when you do it for 7 days or 14 days. I'm sure that could be useful too. I just don't know if there's that much reason to do that. Personally, learning my lesson from carnivore and learning my lesson from keto, like the best thing about keto for me was breaking the keto-ness of it. And a mistake I made was trying to draw that out further and further. I was like, let's see how many days I can go being keto. And I'd go, you know, I don't know, I'd go like 30 days with like no carbohydrate at all, which was a great experiment. Yeah, Ryan, you mind reading this real quick?
Yeah, let me make this full screen. Okay, so yeah, this is from one of the books. It says a full commitment of at least 30 days is necessary to see how something is going to work for you. If you're dieting and fat, then you don't have room to cut corners.
Yeah, it's really important that, you know, you try these diets for 30 days or so at a time. And with sugar fasting, I wouldn't say you have to sugar fast for 30 days. I do recommend that people try sugar fasting for anywhere between, like, you know, I don't know, 7 days is like 7 days is longer than I would routinely do, but it's not a bad idea to try that. 5 days is probably the money. You know, if you want to really see what this whole thing is all about, do it for 5 days. Learn a bunch about yourself, break the fast with some lean meat and starch, and start over. Remember, there's Smelly 2.0 and there's Smelly 1.0, where, you know, or 2.5 or whatever. Every 2.5 days, you're breaking the sugar fast with a lean meat and starch. And then it also has room on the weekend for you to really kind of like pack on the muscle via some strength training and some protein and some starches on the weekend. So there's many different options with this diet protocol. But what I keep coming back to is, like, I mean, I traveled to the East Coast. I traveled to Boston. I just traveled more locally to Tahoe. doing some stuff with some family and stuff like that. And it was great. Some people are like, you can't travel with a diet like this, or you can't travel. It's like, it's so easy. There's fruit everywhere. There's fruit and fruit juice, and there's also candy everywhere. Like there's a lot of good options when you're traveling. And even on the plane, yeah, I brought like some candy with me on the plane. I brought some I also I brought some of those BARE apple and banana. Like those things are amazing. It's just like dried fruit, I guess you'd say, freeze dried fruit. And that's an amazing option. You can see I was hanging out with Nick Norwitz, and Nick gave me a giant thing of gummy bears. I was hanging out with him over at Harvard. That was pretty cool to get a tour of Harvard. He showed us the facility and stuff like that over there. It's really neat. Anyway, next question.
Okay, next question is from the Milkman. It says, why am I crashing in energy when eating carbs like rice and cereal? I feel fine when eating fruits and vegetables.
Well, that's interesting. Good observation. So one thing to think about, like you have to do a fair comparison. Like how much fruit are you eating versus how much cereal and rice are you eating? Like I'm imagining when you have cereal and rice, you're just demolishing it. Cereal and rice is, those are both starches. So those are both going to jack up. Those are like straight glucose. And those are going to cause a response from your glucose levels are going to go up. Your pancreas is going to shoot out a bunch of insulin in response to that. And when you're having fruit, that same exact thing doesn't happen. When you're having fruit, you don't need as much insulin for those carbohydrates to get into the cell and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's just different physiological responses to different types of food. It's interesting because like if you're eating cereal and rice together, then you're getting some fructose and some glucose together, but your ratio of fructose might not be high enough to kind of slow things down. Anybody that wants to have changes in their blood sugar and they don't want their blood sugar to go like bonkers, there's a lot of things that you can do to just keep your blood sugar from going crazy. And number one is you can add in a little bit of fat. You could like a little bit of MCT oil or something like that. Like when I say little, just like a teaspoon or just a couple droplets of it will probably suffice for what I'm talking about here. You can also just have a mixture of carbohydrates. That should help as well. Keep in mind the amount of carbohydrates you consume too is going to be something that could lead to a crash. So I would say, for this guy in particular, like, dude, if you had like half a cup of rice, like you're not going to have a crash from half a cup of rice. You're not going to have a crash from having like a reasonable bowl of cereal. For those of you that are big fat fucks, like even for myself, I just have to sometimes be cautious with the way that I do things. I tend to eat with my eyes. So like instead of getting a bowl of any kind, just get a mug. Have a mug's worth of cereal. Right. And if, you really want to go back for a second thing, then fucking go back for it. Cause that's probably only the size of like a regular bowl, but at least it's not like a salad bowl, cause like when I was a kid and I would eat cereal, I just had like a giant bowl and a giant spoon, but that was also with milk and protein and all those different things and fats. Those are going to leave that glucose floating around in your system a lot longer, which in some ways is like it. In some ways it can be safer. In some ways it can be a major negative, which is just the craziest thing about diet and about our health is it's the Joel Green effect. When Joel was on here talking about a potato, like I think we should make that a full video. That should just be a video on this channel. It's just Joel Green. He talked for like 20 minutes about potato being good and potato being bad. And he had me and Seema like just fully immersed in what he was saying about potatoes being shit. We're like, yeah, fuck potatoes. And then he turned it around and talked about how good they are. And that's what we're talking about here today. We're talking about how good and bad it can be to lose weight. Just sometimes, I don't always love the ancestral thing and thinking about how we used to eat and so forth, but it is important to like think about where we came from and what's, how have we gotten to be the way that we are in some ways. And also like throughout history, would it have ever made sense that we would need to lose, 100 pounds or 200 pounds? Well, it's amazing that the body can do it, but we also have to be accepting of the fact like it's probably not that healthy of a thing to go through. It's probably hard to go through that. It's probably stressful to go through that. Just like it's stressful to go through, just like it's stressful to go through times in your life where you don't have good finances, right? Like that could be stressful. What about the stress of becoming rich? The stress of like being wealthy? People would think, well, wait a second, that's bullshit. That can't be. Getting rich cannot be. It is. Like I don't know what the life expectancy of somebody that's wealthy is, but I mean, it's not without its stresses being an entrepreneur. Or I'm not saying that I'm under stress because I feel awesome and I don't really care that much about a lot of things that trip most people up. So I'm not stressed. I feel really good. But I have a lot of friends who are stressed as fuck and they do really well and they make a lot of money. So somebody that's, getting beat up kind of financially can be stressed, and somebody that is so driven, that they're thinking about how to be more successful when they already are successful, that's a stressor as well. These things like they pull on the body. Exercise is amazing for us, but it's a double-edged sword. Exercise doesn't even really contribute that much to weight loss, although it can help tremendously with permanent weight loss. It can help tremendously with not getting fat in the first place, which is the most important thing, which is back to my point of our ancestors. How much weight would they need to gain or lose for us to be able to continue as a species, for us to be able to procreate? Well, weight gain would be really important. It'd be really important that when the berries and different shit came out and when there was more plentiful food and the rivers weren't frozen and shit like that, and then get salmon and whatever else they could get at the time, weight gain would be really important. And holding on to that weight gain and being someone that can carry stuff and being someone that could kill stuff and being someone that could fight and all these different things and have some muscle mass on you was really important. But then equally important was the ability to run off of less energy. That energy dwindles down in the winter when the food goes away and you get smaller, you get skinnier. But like how much skinnier would you get? I guess it would maybe depend on where you lived and how much food was available. But could we say that somebody went from, 200 pounds, maybe, 200 pounds might be sort of big for those times. I don't even really know, but just say 200 pounds and then they go down to maybe like 170. Right. And they gain and lose 30 pounds. It's like, that sounds reasonable. That sounds like, that something like that probably happened. 10%, 15% of their body weight. Yeah, that sounds like it would happen. But for somebody to lose 100 pounds, 150 pounds, 200 pounds, that's a lot of weight. Or even just somebody knocking off 50 or 60. Like if we just didn't get fat in the first place, that would be the most important place to start. So it's too late for a lot of you. It was too late for me. I was already 330. I had to make a change and had to cut down to where I'm at now, which I don't know what my weight was this morning, but when I got back from Tahoe today, I was 214, which is great because now I'm consistently under 215. Still have that goal to get to 200. It's going to take a while. Lightest I've been is 207, I believe, and still trending on. I'll go up a little bit, I'll come back down a little bit, and that was like a little bit of a more dehydrated weight, but it's going good. And now the next goal is to consistently be under 210, and then hold that. and then be under 205 and then hold that. And that'll probably be that. Once I get to once I'm between like 207 and 202, then the mission's over. And then I will just kind of hang out there and see actually if at that point, if I could just be stronger, build some strength, not necessarily size, just build some strength. I don't know if I'll be able to really like build muscle, because I think if I build muscle, I think I might add some weight, but I'm going to do some things at that time. Just like it's all the same stuff, like whether it's diet or training, like as I move from one thing, I'm going to move to another. I'm going to make my training be more appropriate to my goals. I'm going to keep shifting that shit around, because that's just as important as shifting it's interesting because, man, it's just so interesting with diet culture, how everyone wants to try to always turn it into like a religion. Like, oh man, you moved to this, or he went keto, everybody makes a big deal about it. It's really pretty silly. But we understand that like someone might go in the gym and do a CrossFit workout one day, and then 2 days later, they might do a strongman workout. And then 2 days later, they might do an Olympic lifting workout. And then 2 days later, they might do a like college football running back style workout, right? It's like everyone kind of can understand like, oh, that guy just likes variety in his training. He's like just trying to do a bunch of different stuff. But if you're carnivore and you have a piece of fruit, everyone flips the fuck out, right? Because you're not carnivore anymore. Like, that's not meat, bro. Like, what are you doing? That's not from an animal. Animals are more bioavailable. Like, that's the most important thing. What are you doing eating all that fiber? Like, we don't even need fiber. Haven't you heard the news? Haven't you heard the news that we don't need carbohydrates? We don't need dietary carbohydrates. Haven't you heard of that before? Our body makes its own glucose. Hello? Are you paying attention to what's going on around here? Our body makes a lot of cool stuff. It makes amino acids, and it makes amino acids that are called non-essential amino acids, which would make you think that they're not that important, non-essential. But they're probably more essential than the ones that we don't make, or at least equal to, right? I mean, shit. The ones that we don't make, obviously, you need to kind of, I guess, substitute them in somehow. But just interesting. Anything that's good can also be bad. Next question.
Ethan says, I am on day 2 of experimenting with this. Curious about the cornstarch in candy. Would this not knock you out of the quote fast?
Because it has like starch. No, so starches don't do that to us. That's the good news. Starches and fats, to some degree, don't, before you go putting butter on your candy, starches and fats do not, knock us out of this ideal FGF21 promoting, diet. Again, like I don't really care that much about the FGF21, because the science can change and all kinds of different things can happen. And like, it's not worth worrying about. It kind of reminds me of calories. Like, it's not worth worrying about, not worth talking about. But no, it won't knock you out of anything. Just, the basic thing with candy is like, don't eat candy because rot your teeth, and also like candy is not a good practice for like getting shredded. We can just kind of just sort of think of it that way. For those of you that have a tendency like want to overeat, or, yeah, I mean, look, if you're having candy here and there because you're watching a TV show or you're going to the movie theater or something like that, I don't think that's a big deal. But to try to turn this into a candy diet, I think is a mistake, because there's micronutrients, there's cofactors. I've said this on the Joe Rogan show before. There's cofactors in fruit. There's potassium, and then there's fibers. There's a bunch of shit in fruit that we still don't even understand. But like a blueberry, because a blueberry is like dark and it protects itself from the sun. We know that things that get dark are more protected from the sun than things that are light. A black person versus a white person in the sun, right? Like something that's dark. That's why a blueberry gets dark, because they grows in areas where there's a lot of sun. Cacao grows in areas where there's a lot of sun. It makes itself dark. It's like nature has these ways of doing these things. Requires an enormous amount of sunlight to make cacao, to make chocolate. So anyway, I mean, I'm getting kind of like just completely sidetracked from the main point of the whole thing. But a blueberry has a lot of cofactors in it, and it has a lot of things that is going to allow you to digest it. It has like food is a barcode of information to the body. Food is a barcode of information to the body. You know, you think about when you go to the store and they scan the thing with that little red laser beam. It scans it, and that's the skew. And this was said by Dr. Jack Kruse. He's the one that said this about food. It has like a barcode on it. And it's not necessarily the barcode reading when it pops up doesn't say what you'd think it would say. It doesn't say that this thing has 200 calories and then it has, 7 grams of fat and these different things. There's no macros on this barcode. It doesn't tell you how much sugar's in it or anything. It's a barcode of information that tells you where's this thing from and how was it made? It was either made through, it was either made the way that plants are made, or it was made the way that an animal's made. Like, what did this thing eat? How did this thing come to be? That's what the barcode scan would show you. How much sunlight did this thing get, and so forth. So it's just, the fruits are going to be way more beneficial than trying to mess with candy. And you have to just pound that into your head. The candy, it could be fun. It could be a side thing, but you can run into all kinds of stupid stuff. Luckily, we're going to have a dentist on the show to talk about some of the stuff with candy. And there's also citric acid and stuff like that in candy. And you have to brush and floss and do all these things. And like, rather than just doing all those things all the time, maybe we just drop candy out altogether, just eat less of it. I know I have some here on the table, these little like fruit chew things that I picked up when I was in Tahoe. But again, candy is not my main source of energy.
Taco Nacho says, what is the reason behind no starches? Shouldn't the only concern be low to no fat?
You don't have to have concern over starches, but you might find it harder to lose weight that way. If you want to experiment, see if you can push your starches to the beginning of the day. See if you can get a good workout in first and have your starches not only be in the morning, but have them be post-workout. And that should work tremendously. It's just not as fun as having the starches in the evening. The issue with the starches in the evening, though, when you wake up the next day, it might be hard to routinely get a good, accurate reading on your weight. So you have to understand that most of the time when you have your meat and your starch, you're going to see the scale go up a little bit. Now, over time, the scale is going to trend downward because you're still be like losing fat, right? So if you do something like the Smelly like 1.5, where every other day, that second day, halfway or 3/4 through that day, you're doing the sugar diet by day, lean meat and starch by night, then you should be able to consistently lose weight on that program. It's just that when you have your starch and your meat in the evening, remember the protein should be lean, that you could end up with a reading on the scale that kind of makes you scratch your head, because you're like, you might go up and down, you might yo-yo a little bit, but that yo-yo shouldn't be that big, and you should be titrating downward still. The hardest part about any nutritional protocol, especially one where you're not weighing anything, but I don't want anybody to weigh anything. You could. And it's not the worst idea ever to have some of that discipline in there somewhere, because for those of you that want to have like 3 cups of rice and stuff like that, it might be necessary for you to do that. So then you only have 1.5 cups of rice or something like that, rather than, just these enormous amounts of food that people can sometimes pack away. We have to be a little bit careful with. We have to be a little cautious and conscious with. And so I would say, there's really no reason to sweat the starches. They can be great. It's not going to even break the sugar fast. And a lot of bodybuilders have been using that for years. That's primarily what bodybuilders use. Bodybuilders are meat, starch, vegetables. Meat, starch, vegetables. The only different thing that they throw in there is eggs. It's like eggs, meat, starch, and vegetables. That's like a bodybuilding diet. There's nothing else on a bodybuilding diet. They don't even eat fruit. And if they do, it's like they might have an orange with breakfast or something like that. The list of foods for a bodybuilder are oatmeal, eggs, egg whites, chicken breast, white fish, shrimp, scallops, rice, potatoes. Bodybuilders, interestingly enough, don't even usually have a fat source. Like, most diets, they're like, oh yeah, you got olive oil or whatever, or you got, tallow. I guess bodybuilders from now times would probably say, hey, yeah, have a good fat source, an avocado here and there. Macadamia nut's supposed to be a really good fat source too. Stearic acid, which is found in saturated fat, found in steaks, and also in the keto brick. Keto bricks have stearic acid in it because it has cacao. Cacao is very high in stearic acid. Stearic acid is just a slightly different type of fat that doesn't seem to kind of count against you the same way that some other fats can. MCT oil is a good energy source for fats. It's a shorter chain, medium chain triglyceride. So yeah, that's some of my recommendations for that.
Eric Hopkins says, when incorporating protein and starch on training days after a workout, is it counterintuitive to train midday? There are days when I'm not able to train until later in the day.
He's trying to figure out where to place his meal.
Yes.
That's kind of what it sounds like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, ideally you want those starches and the protein and stuff to be after your training session. And if you are training more like in the afternoon or something, I don't see anything wrong with that. I do think it does throw off the timing of what you're trying to do with the sugar fast, but it should all be the same in the end. Like your sugar fast could still be, almost like 20 hours or 24 hours, no matter when you stop it and when you start it. I mean, no matter when you start it, no matter when you break your sugar fast, you should be able to have, a good 24-hour period where you're back in sugar fasting. So for example, you end your meal at, 1 p.m., your meal that breaks your sugar fast, which would be starch and lean meat and maybe some vegetables. And then maybe 2-3 hours later, you go back to your fructose, you go back to your sugars, you go back to your fruit, your smoothie, and so forth. End your day, start over, morning. And you see what I'm saying? Like you'll get back to that 1 p.m. time frame, and you'll be sugar fasting. So that actually could be very ideal, and it could be something that really ramps your metabolism up pretty good. Like the way that I'm thinking about that now, it sounds actually really good. You also occasionally, just every once in a while, just to see what it does and utilize this as the experiment, just take the meat out and, still have the rice, still get those post-workout carbs, and, try the thing that I ate, the Frosted Flakes. The problem right now with Frosted Flakes for me is I can't keep them in my house. My son keeps eating them. And I haven't even touched them. Like it hasn't been as fun or glorious because the couple times I've went to use it, it's like the box is pretty much completely demolished. So I'll have to start to hide it maybe. But yeah, that would be my suggestion, is to just go straight glucose, go cereal and rice. That combination, Ray Peat was onto something, I think, when he talked about people getting hot from their food And we have an awesome guest tomorrow that we're going to talk with, Josh Rayner. And he loves all the Ray Peat stuff. So it'd be interesting to talk with him. Having foods that make you like hot is kind of an interesting thing, like revving up your core body temperature. And rice does that to me. Like rice stimulates me that way like nothing else. Like sometime last week, I weighed about 216, 217 before bed, and my muscles, like they looked full. Abs were popping really good. I had veins fucking everywhere, head to toe. It was fucking awesome. It looked crazy. I had veins running through like my outer tricep. No working out, no nothing. I was just chilling. I was just like going to bed. It was absolutely fucking nuts. And all that was eating some rice. I was like, holy shit, because it made me warm, and it took my veins, which, my veins are usually pretty good anyway, but it took my veins and just pushed them out even crazier. I was like, holy fuck. So that is a combination of potassium, sodium, hydration, and particular types of carbohydrates. That's the one thing I've been confused about. When the sugar diet first came along, I was like, there's something about fruit that's weird, where it doesn't feel like you get fruit into your muscles. Like it doesn't feel like fruit. Whereas when you have rice, I know pre-workout rice cakes or post-workout, regular rice has always felt like it sat inside my muscles. It felt like it's like saturated my body. And even like bloats you up. Like you eat a bunch of rice and then you go like train. You just feel awesome. Or like I used to eat like pasta, or I used to eat bagels, bench bagel. You eat like a bagel with salt on it, and it's just like poof, your whole body kind of swells up. But that doesn't happen like as much from fruit. Except for some people that might have trouble digesting the fibers in fruit or something like that. And then they might have more of distended belly and not necessarily distended muscles. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing. And I think the more I get into this, the more I'm going to like dive into really messing with the starches. I'm at the leanness that I want to be, but I'm still losing weight. So it makes it hard for me to like, commit to, like, I just can't wait. Like when the time's right, when I'm right around 205, I'll just be murdering like rice and just putting sweet shit in the rice too, to make it like, so I'm getting like both. I'm getting, hammered from the sugar, the straight sugar, and the rice, like getting a lot of glucose and fructose just smashed together.
Okay, Rochelle, let's see here. My chat. Oh, my chat is frozen for some reason.
Oh no, it froze up.
Oh no. Yeah. Let's see if I can fix this. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Rochelle, where did it go? Says, Mark, you came from eating a high protein diet and then you started eating the sugar diet. Don't you ever crave protein on this diet? After a hard workout, how is fruit and sugar satiating?
It's not always the most satiating thing, but it works. I enjoy it, and it gets me to the next meal. Make it to the next meal. I did a video a while back just kind of saying that, like, make it to the next meal, make it to the next day. When people in the military, they're promised X amount of meals a day. When they're in boot camp or basic training and they get their asses kicked, they get the shit beat out of them every single day, but they know breakfast, lunch, dinner. So the way that I deal with it is I just mentally prepare myself for it. Today's a sugar fasting day. We're just going all in. The whole day is going to be sugar fasting. I'll think about it. Oh shit, you're going to be like lifting later today. And when you're done lifting, you're going to want, like a reward. Well, you don't get one today. You got to wait till the next day. And so for me, it's not bad because I just wait to the next day, and then I hammer down some lean meat and some starch. So that's how I deal with it. I deal with it by actually filling in the gap. I end up actually just eating it. And that's a great solution. And I think that when you start to have all these different things in a diet, I mentioned the stuff about the potassium and salt. I'm not fucking kidding. Potassium, salt, and water. Potassium, salt, and water. When those things are checked off, some of these cravings and stuff will subside. That craving that you have for like steak and potatoes and stuff, it's a craving for sugar. I'm sorry, salt. It's a craving for salt. It's a craving for salt. It's like your brain is going to those foods because those foods have salt. What do you do if you have a baked potato? You know, other than some people put butter or sour cream on it, but like, how much salt are you going to dump on that potato? You have to dump a lot on there for it to be anything you can even like remotely get close to eating or finishing. At least that's the way it is for me. So when you're thinking about that craving, even a potato or even French fries, you know, people are like, oh man, I'm craving French fries. Yeah, okay, you might be craving like, but what are you actually craving? You're craving fat and you're craving salt. You're craving fat and salt. Like every time you had a French fry craving, imagine if you had steak and potatoes instead. Like that would be a way better, option than eating like, you know, something that's fried. But yeah, so make sure the boxes are checked for your potassium, your sodium, and your water intake. And you're going to have those boxes checked automatically just by adding in some salt into your smoothies and stuff like that here and there. Add to some of your fruit here and there. You don't have to add a lot. You don't have to go crazy with it. But add a little bit in there, here and there. And then when you bring starch back in and you bring some lean meat back in, then start to re-examine and reevaluate your cravings. Because now you're ending up on a diet that has fruit juice, honey maple syrup, sugar, candy, vegetables, lean sources of protein, and starch. It's like, what the fuck else is there to a diet? You know, maybe I guess some dairy. And there's some room for some dairy and there's room for protein shakes and stuff like that. And I've talked about that a bunch. So it's like now you're on a diet that has such great variety. It's just that maybe some of that variety is just used strategically. Maybe some of that variety is used as a strategy to get your body heading in a particular direction. So, yeah, you know, you're not waking up on a random Tuesday, going to a diner and having, you know, 2 or 3 eggs with 2 or 3 pancakes with butter and syrup and shit poured on. Like that's not a diet that diet will never work for anything. That's not a diet that's actually effective for shit. The only way you can have a diet like that is to count your calories. And then you're a calorie counting cunt. Who wants to be there? Nobody wants to be hanging out there. The old C word. If you're counting your calories and you're trying to keep, again, my beef with counting calories is just the fact that people almost every single time they're utilizing tracking their calories as a way to lower their calories. They're trying to submarine their calories that way. And if you're going to try to submarine anything in any which way, which not a fan of like drastically lowering your calories in the first place. But if you're going to do it that way, then you do so with food volume and you do so with food choices. Food volume and food choices. And in this case, you actually could bring density in there too. And density would be the sugars. So when you have sugar in there, from fruit, you know, fruit is amazing because you can really like shift into different gears so easily. It's not hard to do. You got things like berries, which are fibrous. They're not crazy sugar though. They're not crazy in their sugar, but you could dump some honey on there. You could dump some maple syrup on there if you wanted to. And you can also dump a little salt on there. And now you're getting like this high-powered, high-impact freight train of a food that has like a lot of energy. It also should be something that helps you, not completely diminishes or gets rid of, but it should be something that helps you blunt or lower your cravings. And some of us with these cravings, it's just like we need to like learn. We need to learn ourselves better. We need to be better. We need to figure out a way to get ourselves into a better place so that if we feed ourselves appropriately, I think the cravings will be diminished massively. In addition to that, I think that you should act on the cravings. And I realize that I got to be really careful with that message on who I'm sharing that out with, I think, because some people might kind of go off the rails. Now, just a second here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, hey, you know what? Even if you go off the rails, I got a life raft for you. I got a, I'm still going to throw you something that's going to allow you to float. I'm still going to reach my hand out to you and still offer help, because I don't care how far away you think that you got. You're only one meal away from being back in. Don't ever forget that. You're one meal away from being off your diet, and you're one meal away from being back on your diet. Always, no matter the diet, no matter what diet it is that you pick. So you might have diverted by 2 days, 3 days, 3 weeks. You might have gained 12 pounds. Shit, man, 12 pounds. Man, I don't know. Well, 12 pounds isn't 50 pounds, so come on back. My hand's out. I'm ready. I'm going to help you. I help you get back in this boat. That's what I think. I think sugar fasting is incredible because you're hitting all the different spots of the palate that in a lot of other protocols you're not able to really get to. Now, keto, the guys who had it right years ago, they had cyclical keto. They would have some days where they'd have a little bit of carbohydrate in there, which makes a lot of sense. I know there's some guys, you know, that just go keto full time, but I think some of those guys have a little bit of carbohydrate in there. Robert Sykes, I don't think he intentionally eats any carbs, but I know that Dominic D'Agostino does. Like Dominic will have like a chocolate bar. Whereas Keto Brick, Robert Sykes, he will have his own product, the Keto Brick, which contains some carbohydrates. So there's still a percentage of his diet that has some carbohydrates, but I don't think he really like officially breaks his keto with hammering any carbohydrates. And now that I think about it, I don't think that Dom does either, but I do think that Dominic gets in, 100 grams of carbs here and there. Anyway, most of these other diets, you don't get the opportunity. That's why Robert created the Keto Brick in the first place. Like, what is the Keto Brick? Well, it's something to have on the ketogenic diet that's sweet. Think about it. What can you normally have on a ketogenic diet that's sweet? Nothing, unless it's processed, right? Unless it's something that and I think processed stuff is great. I think it's fine. It has its place. I make protein powder. It's fucking processed, The customers are always asking about the real specifics of the ingredients. And I love that because it shows that you guys give a shit. It shows that you guys care. But I can't make something out of nothing. And I have to make something that still tastes good. I still have to deliver. And same thing with someone like Robert Sykes making the Keto Brick. But the whole reason why that exists, the whole reason why a Quest bar exists, the whole reason why Legendary Food exists, all these companies exist because these other diet protocols do not allow you to have things that are sweet. They don't allow for it. It's not allowed. You're not supposed to do it. And this is a way to kind of like be in that kind of middle spot or to hang out in a little bit of a gray area. And I've used Legendary products for years. I love the products. I'll still promote them. They have amazing. I love their Pop-Tarts. I love the tasty pastries. I love the rolls, sweet rolls. I love really everything they make. They make some awesome potato chip type things. They make all kinds of shit. It's awesome. But again, those foods are created an entire market, entire industry. Quest Nutrition sold for $1 billion. Legendary Foods is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Like it's insane. Those companies are thriving. It's not just them. There's other companies too. They're thriving, tremendously because there's a lot of particular diets that people are on that don't allow for sugar. And in some cases, if you're on like a keto diet or if you're on like a keto diet or trying to have some really serious low carb living, you don't really allow for, I shouldn't say tolerate because I'm not talking about like your body being able to handle it, but you don't really allow for carbohydrates. And because of that, you're trying to give yourself something sweet that tastes awesome. And that's Legendary Foods and these other products. But when you're on a sugar fast, you don't really feel the need for some of those things because you're smashing the shit out of that sweet side of your taste buds. But then you also get to hammer some of the other stuff. You get to have your salt. You get to then have your starch, which isn't really like a taste or a flavor, but starch is a consistency, like bread, like a fucking sourdough bread. You hear what I'm saying? Sourdough bread. Hey, how come no one's ever made, this is something that someone needs to make. Maybe I need to, if I could make this. I was thinking about this the other day. Is it even possible? Ryan, this is dream sequence. Put the little thought bubble right here. And a loaf of bread, sourdough bread. And then over here, you have a bowl of rice. And then marry the two together. Because imagine like sticky rice, like sushi rice, but it was like a loaf. like a sushi rice roll. A sushi rice what was the word I was looking for? Oh, sushi rice loaf. There you go. Yeah, sushi rice loaf. That would be amazing. You mix in, because the sourdough is supposed to have some good properties for like digestion. So you mix in, oh great, Ryan's going to look it up. Maybe somebody already made it. You mix in some of the great properties of sourdough bread with the amazingness of rice, and then you get this fucking rice loaf. Does it exist? Or just in my dreams?
I don't think so. I think it's just in your dreams.
God damn. Everybody help me make this a reality. Let's start a GoFundMe, Ryan. We'll get it cranking. But yeah, you end up being able to hit a lot of the flavor profiles that you like because you're still getting your protein in, you're still getting your other stuff in. It's just you're not getting it in as much as maybe you have in the past. Something to address here at this time is that sometimes people are confused about how much protein. Well, it's going to depend on everybody individually. But if you're starting to have, if you average it out, you're 200 pound male, and you're starting to only have 50 grams of protein a day or something like that, when you average it out with the sugar fasting in there, well, that's not a great amount of protein. That's not awesome, right? You could just say that's not optimal. We do have to keep in mind that from fruits and vegetables and whatever else you're eating, that there's a little bit of protein in everything. So you're getting 5, maybe 10%. You could look this up on ChatGPT and figure it out. We've done this on the show before. I want to say it's maybe 6 or 7% is there's protein is in your fruits and stuff like that. So it's not like you're getting zero protein there. If you're eating 3,000 calories, worth of fruit every day, you might be getting in 30. You might even be less than that. It might be half that. You might be getting between maybe 20 to 30 grams of protein. So it's not zero, but it's not a lot, right? But then every other day, let's say you hammer 100 grams of protein. So you might want to just add that up and see what that looks like. Hey, what does it look like if I do 3 sugar fasts every week and I do 4 days of sugar fast by day, meat and starch by night? And you start to look at that and start to figure out, okay, well, I'm only having 100 grams of protein per week. Okay, well, that's too low. That's, in my opinion, that's a little too low. But what a lot of people would agree with me on, a lot of experts, because I've asked them, behind closed doors. I've asked some of these people, and I've asked some of these people when they've been on the show. Remember Mike Fave, Jay Feldman, a lot of these guys are going to be on the show. We already had Stan Efferding on. We had Cole Robinson on. So make sure you check out some of those episodes. We've had Super Brain. We've had Anabology. We had Amplified Vitality. Like, we're just crushing it over here. And we're going to have more guests coming on. We have Mike Dolce slated as well. And we're going to communicate with a lot of people. But a lot of people, would agree that the fatter that someone is, the longer they can go without protein. So I would just I want to empower you guys rather than me just being the authority and just specifically telling you exactly what to do and how to do it, which I don't mind doing. And I'll do that. So you ask your questions and I will answer them. But I want someone who's, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, whatever it might be, to explore and experiment some of this for themselves. If someone thinks they're going to lose muscle mass, well, then God bless you. Try your own version, and say, hey, you know what, Mark? I've actually just been having, I've still been having 200 grams of protein every day, and I'm doing, sugar fast by day and meat and starch later in the evening, having a protein shake. I'm still losing weight. There we go. You just created a diet. You made your own. And that's my role here. I want to lift people up. I spent many years lifting a lot of weights, lifting a lot of things. And I think the greatest thing that I could ever do nowadays is just to lift people up and help them to be empowered and to feel strong and to feel really good with having the confidence to make some of these calls yourself, because you can do it, especially if you've been listening to me for a little while or listening to a combination of people for a bit. You now know what to do. Next question.
Josh Collier says, need to lose 50 pounds. Should I just sugar fast until it's gone?
I would say no. Because of this. You have probably tried that before. And you have 50 pounds to lose, right? So it means that maybe you already lost a bunch of weight and you're stuck now, or it means that it didn't work, right? We got to be honest with ourselves. As much as I would love to turn this into a race every once in a while and say, hey, man, why don't you drop 20 pounds this month? Let's see if we can do that. It's just we're getting ahead of ourselves. And even some of the guys I coach, they'll send me their weight and things like that. And they're, 275, and then they're 270, and then they're 265. And they're going to say, hey, I want to be 255 by August. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm not going to ever tell them no. I'm going to say, hey, you're flying with your weight loss. This is great. This is so cool that you found a way. But I'll basically say, let's just keep losing weight, period. Because I'm a big believer in the long term. 50 pounds is not going to take that long to get rid of anyway. So I would say what you could do if you wanted to try something like this is you could sugar fast and break the sugar fast every time you lose 5 pounds. Sugar fast, lose 5 pounds, break the sugar fast. Sugar fast, lose 5 pounds, break the sugar fast. Sugar fast, lose 5 pounds, break the sugar fast. And just repeat until those 50 pounds are gone. Now, that might be too extreme, because what we need you to do more so than anything is we need you to be able to follow the diet. Compliance is the science. If I said, hey, let's just have you sugar fast every other day and have lean meat and starch and some vegetables in the evening, Well, shit, now we're talking about you losing 50 pounds. Let's say you lose 50 pounds from now until, let's say, like the end of January. Okay, a bunch of months went by. It's now 2026, but you spent the last, however many months that is, 6 months or something like that. You spent the last 6 months on a diet protocol that you felt wasn't that hard. It didn't feel that difficult. It still allowed you to eat some food socially. Because, hey, look, I don't promote this that much, but hey, this Saturday, you want to go out and eat whatever the fuck you want with your family because it's your dad's birthday? Go for it, dude. The sugar fast works that well where I'm confident in telling you that now. I did communicate some of that sometimes with keto, but it never really felt right because the amount of fat you're consuming, and then and then again, people they're craving. They feel like they're going underwater when they're on a ketogenic diet. I love the ketogenic diet. I will always promote it, always be a fan. But I also think that when I did those diets, I felt like I was going, and then going underwater and seeing like, how long can I do this? And I got better at holding my breath over the years. I got better and better at it. I could go longer periods of time without any carbs. But what happened, there would be like a bow and arrow effect from that. I'd pull back more and more. And the more I'd pull back, the more I would shoot forward with tons and tons of force towards the Ben and Jerry's type of thing. And over time, I learned and I got better. And I didn't do that because that's not the fault of the ketogenic diet. That's my fault. That's on me, 100%. But I know a lot of other people that experience something similar. So let's, I'm not saying like lose weight slow. I'm not saying, I just think that I think that the tortoise and the hare type of situation of don't worry about what the other person's doing. Don't worry about all the other noise around you. And don't worry people's perception of you that you're slow or fat or whatever else. Just like the rabbit thought about the tortoise, right? The tortoise just kept going. He kept one foot in front of the other, right? You keep going. Oh, the guy thinks I'm slow. Okay, well, the only thing that I can do is just keep going. Put one foot in front of the other with some consistency. Yeah, unfortunately, the rabbit is a lot faster than me. The rabbit's also a lot better looking than me. There's a lot of things that are out of my control. I'm green. I got this fucking shell on me and I can swim and I can hide inside this shell to protect myself here and there, but that's about all I got. You just keep moving forward. How can you keep moving forward every day? If your diet is something that you can look forward to, then the whole entire thing is easier. This is why myself and my brother are both fired up about this diet, even though it is limiting. Like, I ain't going to lie to you. It's limiting. Sometimes it kind of sucks. Like, man, this kind of sucks. But I said the same thing on other diets too, especially when I was trying to lose weight. Man, this kind of sucks. That's going to be something that you're going to say. Holy shit, this kind of sucks. It's because losing weight is stupid in a lot of ways. And trying to get to extreme low body fats and stuff is just kind of dumb. It's not healthy. Again, hopefully you guys understand, like, I'm not trying to, in my efforts to get myself leaner, I guess, by default, I am promoting some things that are healthy because it's assisting people with losing weight. And when they lose weight, they're going to have a lot of markers of health improve. But I'm not here trying to teach. I'm not Peter Itea. If you want that kind of information, then you go and you listen to him because he's got that kind of information. I'm not a doctor, physician, or anything else. And you guys know that. I'm smelly and I'm sticking to it. And so this is what I promote. This is what I communicate about. And if you think that you need something healthier, then I want you to understand that the diet that you used before in the past, to get you from one place to another, the diet might consistently change, like we talked about earlier. You're going to have the diet continuing to change, continuing to rotate. Why would you have the same diet? Think about that. I mean, think about that for a minute. Why would you have the same diet at 330 now that you have at 250? Like, why would it be the same? And also, is it possible for it to be the exact same and you continuing to have weight loss? No, there's no way. It's not the same at all. Why is that? Well, because your body changed. Maybe you need more calories. Maybe you need less calories. I don't know. Maybe in that time span from you weighing 300 plus pounds to now weighing 250, maybe during that time span you felt better. You spent more time in the gym and you actually built quite a bit of muscle in that time period. And now you need more calories than you did before. Or maybe you lost a bunch of weight and yeah, your metabolic rate slowed down and you need less calories. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, your diet, it literally, for you to continually have weight loss and or for you to continually have better body composition, your diet has to change. Now, what diet dogma category you're under, we can argue that doesn't have to change. I can agree with that. I understand that. But you literally have to make changes. It doesn't make any sense not to. What about if you go from 400 pounds down to 160? Like, you just don't need the energy. You're a completely different person. You weigh half. You weigh quite a bit less than half of what you used to weigh. You don't need that anymore. I don't need the food that I needed when I was 330 trying to bench over 800 pounds. I don't need it. So that that's like not something you can even refute. What's the definition of a caloric deficit? It's the scale going downwards. It's weight loss. Weight loss is a caloric deficit. A caloric deficit is weight loss. They are attached. And if that's true, if those things are attached, then that would mean that perpetually you have to continually lower your calories in order to lose weight. Or we can get to the same thing we can end up in a caloric deficit in some different ways. Drugs could be one way. Performance enhancing drugs could be one way. Maybe clenbuterol, maybe T3, maybe, I don't think testosterone does that much directly, but it certainly does a ton indirectly to your metabolic rate. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It does a ton for your metabolic rate. It just does so in a way that might not be super fast. And also for people that are already utilizing performance enhancing drugs, that might not be a big change for them because it might be something they've been already doing. You are going to be able to increase your muscle mass with performance enhancing drugs, testosterone, steroids, TRT, HRT, elemental P, whatever the fuck someone wants to call it. All those things are still steroids. Like, whenever TRT, HRT, it's a nice way of saying, hey, like, I'm on fucking steroids. Like, I love steroids. So next time somebody tells you you're on TRT, just say, oh, I get it. You love steroids. And they're going to say, no. My doctor checks my blood work and he saw my blood work was 200 and now we got it up over 1,000. And you'd say, yeah, that's because you love fucking steroids. You love testosterone. Everybody does. They're great. Anyway, when you create a situation where your body's more anabolic, you'll be able to have and hold more muscle mass on you. And when you're able to do that, you are increasing your metabolic rate. So your metabolic rate just went broop, and now the scale might be able to continue downward, right? Makes sense. Page 43, right? But if you've been taking testosterone for a long time, and let's just say you acquired about 200 pounds of muscle mass, let's just say that, and you weigh, I don't know, 230 or something like that. You acquired 200 pounds of muscle mass. Well, this thing isn't going to shift any further in either direction. That's why steroids aren't great for weight loss. I've been trying to illustrate this to you guys, but you're not understanding. You're like, oh yeah, they don't do anything. That's not what I said, you dicks. Steroids are all they do a lot. They work. They work really, really, really well for body composition. They work for a lot of other things. They work for strength as well. But you're gonna be able to play that card one time. You play that card one time. You put that forward that one time, and you gained. Let's just insert the amount of muscle mass so we don't have to even think about it. You went from 180 pounds of muscle tissue on your body, which is quite a bit, and now you're at 200. That's the end of your metabolic rate increasing. So many people keep talking down about performance-enhancing drugs and talking bad about steroids. And they say, well, I'm doing this natural. Who the fuck cares? The performance-enhancing drugs can help a ton. I'm not saying they can't help. What I am saying is it's not anything that changed for me in the last couple months and weeks since I started to sugar fast. Are you understanding what I'm saying here? Sugar fasting, fructose, and pulling back on fats and proteins has done the same thing for my body that steroids have done. It's increased my metabolic rate. Maybe not the same exact amount. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are. I have pictures and pictures and pictures. I got pictures on top of pictures of myself because I'm my favorite person on this planet. That's the way my mom taught me. My mom taught me to be confident. So here I am, being a dick every once in a while. I have pictures of myself from, I'm like 19 years old. I remember getting a body fat test done. It was calipers. It was not a DEXA scan. I want to say it was around 8% body fat. I don't remember exactly what I weighed, but I do recall that I had around 190 pounds of lean tissue on me. This was long before I ever took steroids. Nowadays, if I was to get my body fat done, and I think my highest muscle mass that I've had getting my body fat tested, I never got it tested when I was like really big or anything, or even big and shredded. But usually like my best body fat test results have been like 7-8%, or I'm sorry, that 8% or 7%, which was long ago. And I've also had some 10% readings as of, I don't know, 3 years ago or something like that. One of them I did like a few years after my bodybuilding show, just to try to basically keep my body fat levels low. It was like 10%, but I think the most amount of muscle mass I ever had, I want to say it was like 200, maybe 206 or something. For some reason, that number sticking to my head, 206 was the most amount of like lean tissue. It's not just muscle, but it's like, I don't know, lean tissue, lean muscle, and some stuff, I guess. And the rest isn't all just fat. It's like the combination of other shit, your bones and so forth, right? Yeah, Ryan, there you go. You found a picture. And so yeah, there's some photograph proof. Now look, that's a pump and getting oiled up and having Rick Schaff is the guy's name, believe it or not. Shout out to him. He's a prolific magazine photographer for many, many years for all the biggest companies you can think of. I did that at his home photography studio that he had out there in Venice, California. Not sure what Rick's up to these days, but and you can see like I don't look huge, but I mean, as funny as it's going to sound, like I don't think I look huge now anyway. Like I in comparison to bodybuilders, I don't look huge. At least I don't think I do. There's a lot of people that are way better shape. A lot of people are way bigger. But my point here is that that's me at 19, 20. You know, yeah. At the oldest, I was 21, maybe. But I don't think I'm any older than that. And you could see, like, I didn't have the leg development, and the hamstrings and stuff like that didn't come in. I trained legs, but I was good for squatting 400 or so at that time. You could count me in for a 600-pound deadlift any day of the week back then. You could count me in for, benching 405, maybe 420 or so in there. And then it would get sloppy after that. But I always had a hard time at that point, getting any leaner was tough. I still had annoying little flab of chub, like kind of on my side back fat thing that I always complain about. And what happened was, when I got really lean, is I would just look small. At least I thought I'd look small. And then anytime I would, get bigger, I'd start to weigh like 220, 225. I would actually just start to accumulate fat. And I was like, you know what? This sucks. I feel like because I started lifting at 12. So 12, 13, maybe 14, like those ages, 13, 14, probably not a lot was going on. Probably not, I did get into powerlifting early. But anyway, from the time I was about 15 till the time I was about 18, I trained rigorously, and I knew how to train, and I had some of the, Bulgarian, information on how they did like their weightlifting and all that stuff. And I also had my brothers, both my brothers, Chris and Mike, taught me how to lift, more so Chris than Mike. Mike showed me some actual lifts, and Chris actually helped me understand like the programming a little bit more and stuff like that. And Chris was a power lifter, and he was awesome at powerlifting, and he squatted 675 or so at like 19 years old. So all three of us, had good amounts of strength. I saw my brother Mike squat over 500 pounds many times. I think on Christmas Day, I don't know why he did this. We were in my friend's basement, and he took off all his clothes except for his underwear. Thank God he kept something on. And then he put his shoes back on because it just looks funnier. So in a pair of Chuck Taylors and purple underwear, which I never asked him about why they were purple or where that came from, but they were purple underwear. And he squatted 5 wheels for, I think, maybe like close to 10 reps. I just remember the weights clanking around. They looked like they were going to fall off the side. You had those clips. Those shitty spring collars? He had one of those shitty spring collars on one side, and the other side had a normal collar. And the one side stayed, and the other side started going. I was like, oh my God, he's going to die. But he was fine. He put the weight back, and it wasn't a big deal. But anyway, my point in showing you guys some of those photos is to tell you that I've been awesome, since day one. And I don't know why you guys aren't picking this up. I've been amazing the entire time. No, when I was in that shape, obviously I was very happy with it. I didn't, take steroids because I wasn't happy with my body. I took steroids because I didn't feel like I was big enough. I wanted to be bigger. I was doing pro wrestling, and I was like, I don't really fit in with a lot of these other guys that are wrestling. These guys are like 240, and they look more substantial, and I still kind of look like a little kid. And I want to be a little bit bigger, put on a little bit more weight and size. As I said, every time I try to get bigger, I got fatter. So I turned to performance enhancing drugs. But the reason for showing you that is I did that without performance enhancing drugs. So I can get lean without them. It's just that it helps me to hold a little bit more muscle mass. Now, the bitch of the whole thing is, now I'm 48 years old. I weigh probably about the same as I did in those photos. Those photos, I think I weighed like 210. And, just a couple days ago, I was 210 in the morning. I've been 210, 207, and so on. So yeah, I'm in like the same spot. Again, I'm not trying to tell you that steroids don't do anything. What I'm trying to communicate is that steroids are not great they're great for body composition, but they are not something that's going to burn body fat for you. They're not something that's going to help you with your shitty diet. If you have a shitty diet, I mean, there's so many people that I can attest to this. So please, in the comment section, for some of you, back me up on some of this and let me know. Maybe there's a couple of you that have lost tremendous amounts of weight on performance enhancing drugs. But keep in mind, at 330 pounds, fat as fuck, I was on steroids then too. So steroids don't instantly do that for you. It's the food that makes the biggest difference, is what hopefully I'm illustrating to you here today. And things don't just work out like in this like linear pattern that you think. Because how much more muscle mass do I have now than I did when I was 18 or 19? Probably hardly any, which is crazy, right? Because, hey, look, aren't we supposed to like gain a lot of muscle when we train heavier and stuff? And we do. I mean, I was training heavy then, and I'm still training now. I don't train too differently than actually how I trained then. But do you see what I'm talking about? Like, so much of what we learned about fitness is just pure crap. People are like, keep track of your weights and how much you lift, and you try to always lift a little more, do an extra rep, or it's like, no, you don't. That is not how it works. You're telling me you do tricep pushdowns with more weight than you did 5 years ago? Like, if you're doing that, then why? The fuck are you doing? Like, what's the point? Who cares? It's a tricep pushdown. What about your lat pull down strength? What about even your pull-up? Like, people love pull-ups. They love talking about pull-ups, but like, how much improvement have you actually had on your pull-ups? And even better than that, if you go from doing 10 pull-ups to 30 pull-ups, did your back improve at all in the size of it? Probably not. If anything, maybe it got smaller because maybe you lost some weight. It's going to make the pull-up, that'll make a pull-up way easier than trying to get stronger. It's just to lose weight. You have a pull-up contest against your friend, and it's 6 weeks from now. Fucking lose 20 pounds, and you'll smoke. Well, it just depends on how good he is at pull-ups, I guess. But like, you'll have a better shot at beating him. Anyway, I don't know, just weird, interesting stuff. I don't even know exactly 100% what my point is in illustrating all that to you. But when we talk about the scale going down, there's only a couple ways to make it happen. One's to like be in a caloric deficit, and the other one could be to be more pro-metabolic, to be on this other side. How do we have things that are pro-metabolic? What are things that stimulate your body to use more energy? What are things that are more negative to your body? Not getting enough sunlight, having too much blue light, something like methylene blue. Methylene blue, that I have right here from Transcriptions, it's not a fat burner by any means. It's something that can assist you and help you with collecting more light. It's something that can increase your mitochondria, which you hear a lot of people talking about. It can speed up or increase your, I don't want to say metabolic rate because it's not that direct like that, I don't believe. But there's a lot of things that can be pro-metabolic. There's a lot of things that can kind of shift us into utilizing or creating more energy. And I guess that would be the main thing with methylene blue. It's something that's probably going to assist you more so with creating energy rather than like just burning energy. But we want things in our nutrition that are like pro-metabolic, and we also want to get rid of infiltrators and things that are negatively impacting your metabolism. What are things that could potentially negatively impact our T3 and T4? What are things that can negatively impact our sleep? What are things that can negatively impact our insulin sensitivity? What are things that could be more pro-insulin sensitivity? Well, let's bring in some sugar. And there's some people who's been super frustrated with the word sugar. And there's been people who are like, you're promoting candy and this and that, and they say all this stuff. I'm not trying to promote candy. What I am saying when I talk about candy being part of the diet is that we're actually talking about fucking sugar, straight sugar. It doesn't always have to be honey. It doesn't always have to be fruit. Fructose is fructose, and some of these things are just the way they are. And from a molecular structure, they are similar, and they're going to be broken down similar. Now, again, the candy, It doesn't have the micros in it. It has some macros in it, but it doesn't have the micros in it. So, tread lightly with that and realize that the candy is something that you can overeat. It's something that can be shitty for your teeth, which is a huge deal, by the way. Anyone who's ever had a toothache in their life does not want another one. So that's no joke. And then also your candy could lead to other cravings because it could be absent of sodium, potassium, moisture. Like fruit has a lot of water in it. So there's a lot of great blessings that come from the fruit. So eat the fruit. That's going to be a little bit more important. Let's take one more question before we head on out of here today.
That's it for questions.
Oh, awesome. Well, it sounds like we're done. All right. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.